Hey, how's everyone doing in the Galactic Family Podcast world? Welcome to the Galactic Family Podcast, where we explore the hidden realms of consciousness, contact, and the unseen forces shaping our reality. Today, we are joined by a true visionary of UAP Disclosure, Steve Bassett. Steve Bassett has spoken to audiences in 20 countries about the political implications of UAP ET phenomena and disclosure. The formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging with the human race. He is also the co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and executive director of the New Paradigm Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit providing education, consulting, analysis, and political activism for a post-disclosure world. I could get into it all day with him, but we're going to bring him up on board. Hello. Hey, how's it going, Steve?
Hey, dude. Hey, look, let me quickly clear something up. And this is everybody's doing this. It's okay.
Yep.
I'm the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group.
Okay.
Danny Sheehan is the executive director of the New Paradigm Institute.
Okay.
And just for the hell of it, I should mention it upstairs as we're talking. Danny Sheehan is having his 80th birthday party.
That is awesome. I'm so glad you could join us real quick for this.
Well, my first priority is disclosure and my podcast army. Danny comes in second. But I got to tell you, it just amazes me how most of the podcasters working today or doing their thing today, whether they have 500,000 subscribers or maybe even 2,000, are able to put front bumper graphics up, right? That 40 years ago, any producers, right, for television content would say, I can maybe do that. It'll cost you about $1 million.
Yeah, right.
It's cool, man. It's the age of citizen journalism and is the age of the podcast army. And we're going to get disclosure one podcast at a time.
That's right. That's exactly right, sir. I mean, anything that gets us closer to disclosure is better for everyone, the human race in general.
I believe that. Not everybody does, but I do.
I personally believe that. It would be an awakening, not only in religious, but they say a shakeup. I say awakening. Now, your personal awakening, actually. Now, what was your decision to actually pursue disclosure in the beginning? What happened?
Well, as I said many times, when I was a teenager, I was reading a lot of sci-fi, but I was also watching news and so forth. 1966, when I was 20, I remember reading the article about Betty and Barney Hill, and I'd seen some other things. And what can I say? Just based on common sense, since I had no built-in bias, either politically or religiously or anything else, I said, wow, we've got extraterrestrials here.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to find out more about that. I mean, I'm serious. But again, I'm what? I'm a teenager. You know what it's like. You're overwhelmed with life. You got to live a life and all that kind of stuff. So it's just parked over to the side. And then as the years go by, things would turn up, but we were getting nothing formal, nothing from government about it, which I noted. But again, I was very much preoccupied and pretty much wasting the first half of my life, to be honest. So when I hit a critical point at 49 years old, when pretty much things were not looking too good, because I really hadn't pursued a passion or a purpose. I was just kind of there, being there. Yeah. The name of a very amazing movie with Peter Sellers. I said, what do I want to do? How do I want to spend the rest of my life? And I had been reading several books just prior to that. While I was doing that, I was going through this period, and one of them was John Mack's book, Abduction, and several others, notable. But John Mack's book wasn't just any book. It was a book by a Pulitzer Prize-winning Harvard professor and head of psychology at the Cambridge Hospital. Yeah. And so what that said to me was that this issue is now a thing. It's happening. Finally, it's going somewhere. And I realized, well, that would be just about the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I want to do. But how do you do it? You don't send out your resume. What you do is you volunteer. And I was incredibly lucky that I asked to volunteer and they let me do it. And so I volunteered for 4 months, helped out a little bit, but it wasn't a fit. It was a very academic, science-based thing. And while I had a degree in physics, I just wasn't. I'd been doing other stuff. It wasn't a fit. So, and that's what normal with volunteering. You volunteer, and if in fact there's a fit, eventually you could go on a salary or something, right? But if it isn't, then you move on. So while I was in Cambridge is when I figured, okay, where would I go? What would I do next? Because there's got to be a next. And I had a flash of insight that I wish I had more flashes of insight during my life, but this was a big one.
Yeah.
And it said, Steve, you've known there's an ET presence since you were a kid. So, and you've read a number of books. It's quite clear. It's been proven by any reasonable assessment. Then what is the problem? The problem is not a science issue. It is a political issue.
Yes.
The fact that what we know or do not know about ETs was not a scientific matter. It was a political matter, and therefore it needs a political solution. So you need to engage the politics of the phenomena, not the phenomena, right? The research. Others are doing that. They've been doing it for decades. And then I said, okay, if I'm going to do that, then how would I start? And then it occurred to me, I'll bet nobody was dumb enough or crazy enough to register as a lobbyist on this issue. Nobody's ever done. And I knew Washington very well. I'd lived there on and off my whole life.
Yeah.
And politics a little bit. I said, I'll bet nobody's done that. What if I were the first one? Right. And so I called a number of organizations, various groups. Don't need to name the names now, but they were groups. I said, hey, look, I want to register lobbyist pro bono for you. It won't cost you a cent. And in our world, that's what you want to hear. It's like, okay, fine, sure, no problem. So I had about 6 of them. And so I registered as a lobbyist for like 6 groups, different groups.
Yeah.
Called, and I needed to have an entity. I needed to call it, and I called it Paradigm Research Group. That's why I called it that. But it wasn't a research organization. It was a political engagement advocacy organization. And it started off pretty slow. I mean, I found out right away, nobody wanted to talk to me on the Hill. I mean, you may be a lobbyist. So what? What's your issue? Well, it's the extraterrestrial presence. So they're going, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not going to work. That's okay. I'm a registered lobbyist nevertheless. And so what I realized is, don't lobby the Congress, lobby the media. Bug the media, because this is a great story.
Yes.
And so if you can just keep pushing it on the media, get that story in there, right? That will eventually have impact on Congress. And over the last 28 years, I have generated a huge number of media stories on this issue. That was my thing, including 600 that has me in it, right? Yeah. And I've got them on my website. I need to promote that more. In other words, 600 about the issue, but it includes me in it. And then God knows how many other
1,200 podcasts.
And then I've done interviews in podcasts, radio.
Yeah, interviews. Like that's a lot.
It's more way over. That's probably about 1,500. So that's what I ended up being. I ended up being a media spokesman who happened to be registered lobbyist. Now, recently, I've been getting up on the Hill, and I have some more plans because now you can be a lobbyist on this issue. There's about 7 or 8 registered entities, and I'm kind of falling behind because money's kind of dried up. I need to raise some bucks, but now you can do some. So I'm going to be doing that, as well as other things with Paradigm Research Group, which is now a nonprofit, 501c3.
Yeah.
Sorry about the dog. She'll quiet down.
Oh, that's
He barks every time somebody comes in the house.
Mine will start up here in a few minutes, probably.
Yeah. So that's kind of the story in a few words.
All right. Well, getting back to that, to disclosure, like there's so much pushback. Also, like we were talking about in the government, like when Lou was in there, he had said a story, I believe, online saying that one person spoke to him in the hallway and said, "Oh, they're demons, they're devils."
Yeah,
we don't want to research that. We don't want nothing to do with that. They're demons, and it's like half he said was like religious, Lou said, and the other half is more scientific based.
Well, first of all, the amount of there's always been pushback, and there still
Yeah.
is, but believe me, it's a fraction
Demons?
of what it used to be. And so,
Uh,
whatever pushback there is this much national security and
yes.
that much religion. Trust me. Okay. Somebody can have an issue, they can say something, fine. But the fundamental issue is that this is a national security matter, that those that were tasked and paid to defend the United States against all enemies, domestic and foreign, viewed the disclosure of this subject, making it real, making it worldwide, was a risk they didn't want to take.
Yeah.
And they thought it threatened national security. And one of the reasons that they cared about this, because risk comes in many ways. One way it comes is uncertainty, right?
Mhm.
Or wild cards and things like that you don't see coming. And so they couldn't really tell themselves what are all the unknown unknowns and the unknown unknowns that follows the confirmation of the ET presence to the entire planet. They couldn't know that. And given the fact that there were thousands of nuclear warheads ready to be launched like that, in which case we're all in an episode of The Walking Dead, they decided, no, we're gonna embargo this. That's the term I came up with around 2000. I said the UFO government's the wrong term, and it needs to be truth embargo. That's me, but I don't write books, so it's harder to get credit for something if you don't write it down on paper in public. So the embargo was basically national security driven, and the disclosure process, which is now in its final years, weeks, months. I mean, we could have disclosure at any time.
Yeah.
Is essentially, interestingly enough, maybe not ironically, but interesting, that it is essentially national security cast, which is to say that as the members of the Congress were approached, and some of the more high-level journalists were approached by pretty substantial people, starting back in 2017, they cast it as a national security matter worthy of their attention, and that was the way to do it. And the articles since then. Since 2017, I've already logged in 7,000 articles in my archive, which is available to everybody. That's just in the last 7 years. There's 16,000 that I was able to archive based on internet ability. I didn't go searching microfiche and going into the files of newspapers. There are tens of thousands more if you want to do that. But 16,000 links will keep you busy for a while.
Yeah.
So it's a national security issue, but increasingly that is no longer the driving matter. What's the driving matter is that it's that the secrecy, the abuse of secrecy, the overclassification, and the dismissal of the public's right to know and need to know, that is now more of a national security problem than the presence of the ETs.
Yes, I believe that totally. But intelligence agencies have historically they suppressed this. I've even heard that there's a server that has all this stuff on it, but it's so top secret that nobody has access to it. Like, I mean, like we said, like you said, overclassification,
Sure.
and there is a way to get it out there. Like you don't suppress the technology of nuclear science, but you suppress the technology of building a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, that's true.
Difference, because you can build a power plant or you could build a nuke.
But you see, in order to not suppress this technology, they have to first acknowledge that we're not alone. They didn't have that problem with the nukes. So it was a challenging dilemma, and the world has managed to maintain an embargo on this essentially for 78 years, which is quite astounding. I still don't know how they did it. Yeah. If I get the money one day and I get I got the contacts and so forth to do the documentary I've always wanted to do, which would be like a 5, 6, 7, 8 episode, or maybe a full-blown movie called the Truth Embargo, because the Truth Embargo, the policy of just denying this, right, to me, is more extraordinary than the presence of extraterrestrial. It doesn't surprise me at all that there's ETs, that there is multiple civilizations throughout this galaxy, which has 200 billion stars and a trillion planets. That doesn't surprise me. What surprised me is the United States government, well, all the governments in the free world, with the assent of clearly the cooperation of, or the go along of the major autocracies, have been able to embargo this issue for almost 8 decades, in spite of the fact it's everywhere. That is extraordinary, and I hope one day to have the ability to explore that, maybe do a doc. But I'm going to need a couple million for that and a lot of help, but whatever. That to me is more extraordinary, believe it or not, than the ET presence, which again I've known was true since I was like a teenager.
Well, if I ever win the lottery, you got my vote on that one.
Absolutely.
What do you believe is the most credible piece of evidence that's been ignored by the mainstream media? Because I know like we said, the best way to attack it is to have the media attack it first, and then it's everywhere. Like the drone situation, like it kept happening on the TV every night, and then politicians were like, governors were like, oh my God, now I got to say something. People are coming at me with questions that I don't have the answers to.
But it wasn't just a drone situation.
Yes.
That was the problem. They could have engaged that. The problem they had was that the ETs, God bless them, had started up a while ago what will easily be recorded as the largest UFO flap of all time. They were cruising around ships, started turning over military bases. And by that, I'm referring mostly to what we call orbs, which are obviously a structure in a sense. They're round, they give off a lot of light. We call them orbs. What they are is not clear. I think the best guess is they're a plasma phenomena that ETs are able to control, and we can't. And so whatever they're doing, they've been turning up forever. The first real, how would you say, evidence for these, quote, orbs, which are probably drones. I mean, they're not piloted, but they are controlled.
Yes.
Was the Foo Fighters of World War II, where these things were flying along with Japanese, German, and American planes, just cruising along, hanging out. Didn't just bother anybody, didn't shoot, destroy any aircraft. But the pilots are looking at that going, what the hell is that going on? And they would report it. But what are you going to do, right? Your pilot comes back and says, look, there's these orbs following me while I'm, on a mission to bomb somewhere. And you go, well, that's very interesting, but we do have a war going on.
Exactly.
We've got to focus on that.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning. And then they've been turning up off and on for the last 80 years. One of the most famous examples is the flyover of Washington, D.C. in the first 2 weeks of July 1952. Big deal. There were photographs, but they're pretty much not available. There weren't a lot of photographs because nobody had iPhones back then. But still, there's probably some photographs, but there's been some nice renderings of what it looked like. It caused a lot of hubbub. It caused a lot of panic. They had to give out some statements, and then they very soon created a very substantial panel based on the CIA called the Robertson Panel to come up with, what do we do with this? And it fatefully, what the Robertson Panel decided and reported was that, well, the phenomena doesn't seem to be a threat. It's not shooting anything. It's not blowing anything up. But the public's growing interested in it. That's a threat. And so that's what we have to deal with. And thus formally began the truth embargo in 1952. So that was 73 years ago, though the actual embargo starts with Roswell. So what happened? So over the years, off and on, these things turn up. But last year, it was off the charts. You had these orbs over dozens of facilities, not only in the U.S., but also overseas. And most of them were military or national security or sensitive of some kind. And that's a big deal. So you've got these orbs flying over the facilities that are sensitive, which means you can't ignore it. You can't just say, there's stuff flying over our base. No big deal. No, you can't do that. Now, if they're flying over a giant wheat field in Kansas, nobody gives a damn. But if you're flying over a base or a nuclear facility or anything like that, you have to deal with it. So it forced the government's hand, right? And so this went on. And again, this time, this huge flap that went on for months and months was being filmed by thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And naturally, when they got a good shot, they put the video up online. And now it's being spread around and shared all over the friggin' world.
Yeah.
So if the ETs didn't want our attention, then what they were doing was not doing that. And so the government was put in an impossible position. They couldn't say they were ours. They couldn't say they were another nation's. All they could say is, we don't know what it is, but that was not going to work. And so what the government did, according to what I believe, and no one is corrected me yet, is that the only thing the government could do, which is what our government did, is that when you had an event going on where you a bunch of orbs over a base, you sent our own drones up there. So you got our own drones flying around. Okay. Now, why would they do that? Because obviously people are watching all this stuff.
Yeah,
they're seeing the plasma balls, but they're also seeing the drone.
Yes.
Real drones. And so they're saying, well, I saw a drone. That gave the government the ability to basically put it all into one thing called a drone swarm, and thus bought them some time. Not that a whole bunch of people knew that was crap, but still, it bought them some time. It was the best they could do. And I assure you, it did not. It accelerated the disclosure process. It has helped get to where we need to go. And then it faded away. It's like it accomplished its goal. And there's not too much of that now, but the ETs can bring those back anytime they want. And I think every person that needs to know that in our government, including a lot of politicians, know that. And so once again, how long can you keep this nonsense going on before you are a clown in history?
Yeah, exactly. And the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. This is what I personally believe is, throughout history, there's been snippets of truth put into science fictional movies to get us prepared for what's happening. I'll bring my favorite movie up. 1986, Flight of the Navigator.
That was a good movie.
Yes.
It's a cool movie.
It's psychic, connects to a living spaceship.
True. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of what we got now. It's like I was going off on another podcast on a tangent, and I said, okay, you've got the egg that is the transport vehicle that is like the horse to the Indian.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to have an Indian with it to move.
Yeah, right. So here's the thing. Plenty of people have known about the ET presence going back all the way to the war.
Yeah.
Plenty of people. All right. Meanwhile, the citizens, without any money hardly, and having to deal with ridicule and being diminished and laughed at, did amazing research, writing thousands of books and studying thousands of events and sightings and so forth for years. And so there was plenty of information to draw on if you wanted to write a book or do a movie. Right. And so that was incorporated in various content. I don't necessarily think it was to how would you say, prepare us. No, it was just, hey, cool. Let's do a book, right? Let's do a film and include some of this stuff. And so sci-fi has incorporated over the decades ideas that the researchers kind of brought forward in researching the actual ET phenomena. But then we went way past that. Once CGI came in, it's been taking us all over the friggin' galaxy for years. And so the content industry has always been ahead of the curve. And they're now really engaging because we're practically there. And so they intend to make a lot of money from what's coming. God bless them. It's okay. I wish some of that money would come to us, maybe some donations to the nonprofits. I've got one. So does Danny, whatever, but that's up to them. So this stuff is there, but I don't, it's not a matter of preparing. If anybody is preparing us for disclosure, it's the ETs themselves who really could do a lot more to be more discreet, but they're not. I mean, they've got the tech to be very discreet, but no. It's kind of, they're flying around, let you see them and doing other stuff, right? Yeah. So they are, if anything, have been preparing us in many ways. And that will ultimately come out when we can do proper histories and films and books in the post-disclosure world, when the truth is finally out and it's all confirmed. I think that's where things will go. But again, while the film industry, and I've spent some time in Hollywood the last 3 or 4 years. It's a tough place, and I get it. It's hard. If I'd gotten in it when I'm in my 20s, could have been pretty cool, but not at my age. But nevertheless, I had a taste. They have done more than any other entity or concept or program or institution to make the world aware of the idea of off-world beings. I think I'm now calculating around 600 sci-fi movies, which have ETs in them of all kinds of shapes and sizes, whatever. They have ETs in them, right? And so these films have been seen billions of times. I mean, if you count all the people that have viewed each one, it's billions and billions of times, going back 60 years, 70 years. And so the idea of non-humans from somewhere else has been spread and made completely normal by the film industry. And that has played a very important role in helping to get governments to do the right thing.
Well, I believe also what we need to do is we also need to have it out there so that when something happens to someone, like for myself, for example, I was, I'm a section state director with MUFON in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I investigated a location. I got injured at that location by that UAP landing site. I went to the hospital.
What kind of injury?
What
kind of injury did you have?
I had symptoms like Jake Barber. I had peeling off of my skin.
Okay.
Of my arms, just my arms, because that
radiation.
Was
basically, that's radiation.
Yes. Went to the place, to the doctors, had the EMF meter with me, had the samples with me, had the lab report with me. The doctor blew me off. As soon as I said I was with MUFON, he blew me off. He said, he looked at my arms, and you know what he put down? It was
psoriasis?
No.
Sunburn?
Nope. Undisclosed skin eruption.
I
was like,
worse. Yeah.
What? Undisclosed skin eruption. That's what he put down. And I'm like, that is either a radiation burn or an EMF burn, but it's a burn. And he wouldn't treat me. Like, that's what I'm thinking. We need to get
Well, the list of things that we can do after disclosure is a very long list. Right? Very long. You've frozen up on me there, but it's a very long list, and that's just one of countless things that suddenly become doable after disclosure, but aren't not being done properly now.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's one thing then, things need to come out so people can get treated properly. Even like, the person, Rendlesham Forrest, his VA medical file was in a top secret compartmentalized place in the VA that he should have had access to.
Guess what? I get to take some credit there, because John Burroughs, the way he finally got what he needed to get was he was a witness at the citizen hearing on disclosure, which I put together in 2013. And Mike Gravel was one of the 6 former members of Congress that was on there. Great man. And he put the word out. And before you know it, John Burroughs was contacted, and ultimately he got something. I don't know if he got everything he needed, but he got something. But that event cost $700,000, so it's tough. But that's a win for us. It was a win for John.
Yep.
We're having more wins all the time. We will get disclosure, and I can make the case for why it could be within the next 60 days.
Oh, wow. That would be something. It would be. I mean, just a switch in someone's mind saying from this is just too much, and then they don't pay attention, or now it's like, oh well, maybe it could be. Just to change it just a little bit would make all that difference, even to people like experiencers too.
Well, that's a whole nother matter. That area is kind of off to the side. We can't really bring it in yet, but hopefully they're paying attention and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But here's what's going on. Okay, first of all, it's hard to find anybody on Capitol Hill that hasn't mentioned UAPs, UFOs, ETs, aliens, legacy projects, classified programs, crash vehicles, whatever. I mean, it's all over the friggin' Hill. Okay, we've had at least 9 hearings now, but 2 major hearings and 7 briefings, right, in front of either Congressional House or Senate. Before that, we'd only had 2 brief hearings back in the 1960s, right? So we've had that. Those hearings were huge, major news. David Grush, of course, became a household word then. Meanwhile, the Committee on Oversight in the House went even further, and not too long ago set up an actual task force called the Task Force to Disclose Federal Secrets, right? And they just weren't just putting it in there to have something. No, they made it clear they're going to go after the JFK records, RFK records, MLK records, likely even Epstein files and UAPs in whatever order. And that was actually put out there. And the chairman of the task force on declassifying federal secrets just happens to be on the subcommittee that has held the last 2 hearings, right? They were chaired by one was chaired by Nancy Mace, Representative Mace. The other was by Representative Burchett. But Luna was right there next to him. And now she's the head of this task force. And she's already getting some of the JFK files. So that's happening. Meanwhile, the UAP Disclosure Act, the big one, the total package that was kind of cut in half and then resubmitted again, right? But had to be withdrawn and resubmitted again, is about to be resubmitted for a 4th time. The whole package.
With the whistleblower protections in it? Because I know some of them got taken out.
With some of that. And also the other acts also have some witness protections. It has to be resubmitted, including eminent domain. And Danny Sheehan is completely involved in that. And so he's, from our side, he's the point of the spear, working a lot. I mean, he's literally going back between California and here all the time. And so he's working directly with committees and so forth, members of Congress, witnesses. I'm just a poor political activist, small, but I'm nicely located 2 blocks from the White House. And so I'm not at that level. I can't really have that kind of engagement. There's a lot I can do, which is why I converted to a nonprofit 501c3 about 6 months ago, finally, after many years, so that tax deductions can be taken for people who support PRG. So, and there's more I could list. You've got the whole UFO flap that caused a big stir. All right. And you've got witnesses coming forward in droves, which in most cases have not many of them are not even known. They're just privately discussing or talking with members of Congress or staff. So the total extent of the witnesses that have come forward, we don't know. It's big. And you've got some that are a little out there, don't know, but nevertheless, the barrier to coming forward is very low now. The stigma is eventually almost completely gone in the media coverage, which you can go to paradigmresearchgroup.org, projects, the print media archive, and read a lot of the 7,000 articles since December of 2017 in the New York Times articles, and you will find the stigma is virtually gone. In fact, we came up with UAP years ago because we felt that UFO was so corrupted by the government's embargo that we needed another term that meant the same thing but didn't have the stigma. That's why we came up with UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And that was, it finally got in play, and it helped get things moving, right? You want to talk about UFOs? I got a lunch, right? Now, can we talk about UAPs? Okay. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But things then moved so far and so quickly that UFO came back, right? In spite of the history and the stigma, it came back. And so you got members of Congress, they'll say UFO, this, UFO, that, whatever the hell. And so that's how much progress we have made. And then, of course, we have the political developments. On the one hand, the political chaos and both domestic and international going on is kind of like a headwind that the process is having to deal with, right? Makes it a little harder, but we're still making progress in spite of that. But the political side of the disclosure process is taken another level. And that is this. We now know that the current president has been talked to by a number of people regarding this issue. His statements going all the way back to his campaign the first time have been limited, though generally you can kind of see a little more positive. But I don't think that any statement he makes on this actually reflects what he may know or thinks about this issue. But he is definitely being encouraged by certain members of his circle to take this on. And by taking this on, I don't mean press for confirmation or proof. We already have them. Taking this on means confirming it as the president. That's disclosure with a capital D. That's the end of one era and the beginning of another. And there have been a lot of clues, but the single most important clue that, in fact, this is clearly in play. And once it's in play, anything could happen at any time, with or without another hearing, which is scheduled for April, with or without any more skiffs being held, like Nancy Mace supposedly held on April 1 with Grush and Elizondo. He could just do it. He is a president that could do that. Of the 14 presidents, he is the one of all the 14 since Roswell who could simply just do it. And be backed up immediately by hearings and so forth. And so the biggest clue is this: 3 days before his inauguration, his son, Don Jr., who has a podcast, which I didn't know until I learned about this, and he's got a decent amount of subscribers. I mean, it's not trivial at all. He's actually pretty good at being a podcaster. And 3 days before his father takes the oath, he brings on Elizondo and Coulthard for an hour and a half for an extensive interview about this whole thing. You think that he went rogue there? You think his father didn't know that and almost certainly greenlit it? I think what's going on with Don Jr. is that the administration and even the president is using him as kind of a measure of what the response will be, getting a sense of what the people's reaction will be. And if you go to his podcast site, I mean, he may have several, you know how it is in multiple locations now, and you start reading, and I think it has comments. And if you read the comments, if I recall, they're positive. And I think there may be a lot of them, but you're seeing mostly positive comments. You don't think that the president's staff are not aware of that? And so again, we're at a place that, as far as I'm concerned, disclosure could happen tomorrow. It is up to the president. But if he wants to have another hearing, he'd like to see another hearing, a major one in the House. Nancy Mace wants one, and she has indicated she would love to have the nuclear weapons shutdown witnesses. There are still some alive, led by Captain Robert Salas. Those witnesses would be mind-blowing. I mean, David Grush was important, but SAC base officers present when the missiles are shut down with a craft overhead, it's even bigger than Grush. And not one, but there's 4 that can testify about nuclear weapons tampering. And so he may want to wait for that, which means that, if she has the hearing this month, it could be late in April, it could be early May. We are right there. But the the international circumstances are extremely intense, volatile, and uncertain at a level that I had not seen in a long time. And so that doesn't help. It doesn't help to make a decision. I happen to believe that disclosure would go a long way to helping us deal with this other stuff, right? It would open a lot of possibilities and doors. It would allow us to engage these things in a different way. So I think it would help greatly. But if you are in the middle of all that and you're dealing with these crises and so forth, it's one more variable amongst many that just makes it harder to make a decision. So it's an interesting place. Hopefully we won't have a calamity, like a major war breaking out. That would shut things down for a while. So keep your fingers crossed.
Well, which if the U.S. does not release the information first. Who do you believe is the closest to a full disclosure other than us outside the U.S.?
Xi Jinping or Putin. Easy.
Okay.
It's going. If it's not our president, it'll be one of them. Yeah.
Now, would it be because of the difference in their states of interest? Like they have Xi Jinping can say, work on this, and everybody work on this project. But in the U.S., we have you work on this section, you work on this section, you work on this section. It's all compartmentalized in different programs.
No, it's the same way in our country. No, it's not about that. It's about simply is Putin or Xi Jinping capable of simply telling all the media to get their cameras, and we're going to have a presentation, we're going to have an announcement, right? Build it up huge, and then come out there and just say, there's been an ET presence here for a long time, and we have some crash vehicles, very possible. We've known about it for a long time, and we've chosen to focus on other things. But now the circumstances are such that we feel it's time for you to know. And I, the leader of the Chinese people, or I, the leader of the Russian Republic, am telling you that tonight. Yeah. And of course, there will be ample follow-up and channels and evidence being brought forward, so to leave no doubt. And in that case, our president would get, as they say, sloppy seconds. Okay.
I understand now. So do you think that we're already in contact, but with ETs, but under some black program that we're not aware of?
We could certainly, we know there's contact with ETs because they show up in people's bedrooms, and it could be anybody's bedroom. It could be a joint.
With Jake Barber talking about like the whistle caller and everything.
They can show up in anybody's bedrooms, but in terms of kind of a formal contact, you can't rule it out. It is possible. It's certainly speculated on. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Is it been confirmed to my satisfaction? No, it hasn't.
Okay.
And it could be, again, informal, meaning that, some ETs landed and we actually approached them or something, and then they flew off, whatever. We just don't know. And obviously that is, if there has been formal contact with extraterrestrials by our government, certainly, it is long past time that the American people knew about that and really about everything about that. It's no longer, I think, viable.
There's some pretty credible cases in my, that I've known about, like the one in Australia with the two aliens that were captured and everything running in the streets.
I think that's
Is
that's
it Africa
Brazil.
or was it Brazil?
I think that's Brazil. The famous case in Australia was the Westall schoolyard case.
Yeah, I mixed them up then.
That's all right. And then you got the Ruwag case, the Ariel school.
There's a bunch of them.
This is just part of the massive amount of evidence.
But it's mostly children that they're showing themselves to, like the schoolhouses and everything first. And I believe in like they're the most vulnerable to the like Jake Barber was saying about. I felt the energy that it felt like an energy of my mother. I was crying. If they're feeling this like energy off these children that are just, they're innocent children. They've done nothing wrong and everything. They feel all that energy in one place. Maybe that's what's calling them to that schoolhouse.
I don't. That's an interesting speculation. I don't have much view on that one or the other. I think if you look at the testimony of the kids, that's not what they reported. And look, if a craft, if a kind of a saucer lands near your schoolyard, most kids, particularly young kids, they're going to run right to it.
Oh, right? Yeah.
That's super cool. And then there's ETs there. And then, but what they did was, and maybe they guided them there. They could have said, come, whatever. The point is that the most important thing about all of the schoolyard incidents, and there's been more than two, by the way, it's just a lot lesser known, is that they projected images of potential future destruction in their heads. As kind of like a warning.
Yes.
That's pretty much all they did. It was like they were seeding this concern. You guys are headed to hell in a handbasket, and we're going to let some kids know about this. And as you grow up, maybe you'll influence. I'm speculating here, obviously, but there needs to be a reason. I just think they're going to just land and put some images in some kid heads because they're bored. They got nothing to do. And these kids, of course, had a rough time because this happened some time ago, and it's a stigma. It is somewhat traumatic, particularly as they learn more about how this issue is belittled and stigmatized, and they're going, "Oh my God, I've got a connection to this," and I talked about it. But we'll put the blame on the U.S. government and the other governments, not the ET's fault. But it is a very notable piece of evidence that we have, which of course is not available yet. In other words, we're not going to hold a hearing and bring in school kids, former school kids, to talk about that event. We don't need it. And it would put too much pressure on the politicians that are trying to get this done. You can't get everything through the door at the same time. We've got everything we need to end the truth embargo. After the truth embargo, engaging abduction, engaging school cases like that and anything else will be pretty straightforward. There won't be much resistance, and people can come forward and be viewed as heroes and not crazy. But until we get disclosure, it's still a very delicate balance.
Okay. Now, how do you feel about AI in the disclosure realm, period? Because, my feelings are, AI is kind of a double-edged sword, because AI can also help disclosure, but it can also hinder disclosure too by putting out so many videos that are fake, and everybody starts, "Oh, that's real. It must be real," or "No, that's AI," and they just start saying it's all fake.
Look, if you're a Hollywood star or something, yeah, you need to worry, but because they'll be putting fake you in God knows where. But no, we're way past the point where, you can make AI stuff if you want to, but we're past that. It's already been proven a million times over. The issue is in play. If you want to create an AI that purports to show this or that, and people have done it.
The real investigators will know.
Yeah,
that's
it's
fake.
like, okay, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But what is the point? We already know they're ETs here. Yeah. So if you got an amazing thing, fine. It doesn't change the fact that they're here. If you're trying to add proof, that's helpful. But to really add proof, you got to do more than just come up with a cool video. You've got to research, you've got to verify, and all of that. And not the AI people that are having fun and not doing that. I'm not worried about AI. But the one area where AI is that I would bring out in a presentation is relevant, is that soon we're going to get disclosure, and we're going to have open contact. In my view, I feel very strongly about that. It won't take long. Open contact is not the same as turning up in your bedroom for a chat or a visit to the craft. It is open contact, and as long as it involves communication between us and them, however that takes place, and we are provided the content of that in communication, so we know what's going on. That is open contact. And as we get into quote, and maybe it'll go from there. I mean, the future gets pretty interesting, but we are dealing with an advanced civilization that might be 500 years ahead of us, could be 5,000 years, could be 50,000 years.
Yeah.
And so our ability to create AI and use AI becomes pretty handy. Because let's face it, I mean, Google translation is pretty cool. You speak English, you go to a French site, you click it, it turns the French into English. It's very helpful. But dealing with another advanced civilization and trying to understand concepts and so forth, AI will come very much handy. Okay. If they have a language, whatever it is, we'll just train the AI, right? And pretty soon we can literally communicate. It's the old translator. They had it in Star Trek. But it might not be easy to do in Star Trek. There's a lot of ways that AI will act as an interface between us and other civilizations, offer civilizations. So in that sense, it's a very significant thing and a positive thing. Now, it's also a tool. Yeah. Right? And humans are into tools. That's what helped us get where we are. Tools, lots of tools, every tool you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And there isn't a tool, period. If you can come up with an exception, I will bow to your perspicacity, but there isn't a tool that can't be used to build or destroy. And it's obvious, isn't it? Hammers and screwdrivers, you can build houses with them. You can also be a mass murderer and do nothing but use hammers and screwdrivers, okay? A car is a tool to get somewhere, but it kills 30,000, 40,000 people a year just in the United States. True. A computer is a tool. You can use a computer to rob banks and ruins people's lives. And I could go on. There is no tool that doesn't have this duality. And the problem we face in this world is that we've got the duality screwed up. In other words, we need to have all of our tools should be 99% used to build, create, and a little bit of potential use or use in dealing in a destructive way. And in fact, it is not that way at all. We have a significant percentage of destruction embedded in most of the tools we have, some less so. Okay. But some of the tools we have are mostly destructive and only mildly constructive. And that you take it all together, and this is a very dangerous place to live. It is, because we can't, our worldview does not, is preventing us from using the tools that we create constantly and incessantly and improve on them all the time. We don't have to have a worldview to use them right. And so we need a worldview change. That's one of many reasons. And in order to have a worldview change on a global basis, you need a massive igniter. You need something really big to impact an entire planet of people. And there's only one candidate for that. Nothing else even comes close. And that is moving into the post-disclosure world. The confirmation for everybody that cares that we're not alone. And if we're not alone, it doesn't mean there's one other species out there. God knows how many there are out there. And also, at least as far as I'm concerned, confirmation of the ET presence confirms star-to-star travel, because I think that's where they're from. And if it takes 30 or 40,000 years to get from one star to another, I don't think you're going to get many visits. So star-to-star travel gets confirmed, and that's a whole nother thing. So we're on the cusp of extraordinary developments, positive possibilities, and a major worldview change, which if we take full example of, we make the decision, all the tools we have are going to be used to build and make the world safer, more useful, and done in a way that doesn't undermine the biosphere, because that obviously is the same thing as destruction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And if we can actually get there, there's almost no problem we face now that can't be solved. Relatively straightforward. But until we get there, we're not solving jack. And we're in deep trouble. Huge trouble. The ETs, I think, know this. They turn off our nukes as a way of letting us know that they know this.
The warning.
So this is big time, and that's what's going on. So that's kind of the latest. I need to get up to Danny's party, but I'd like to do that by doing some quick promos. So what's going on?
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, the Contact in the Desert is a major event every year, and it's going to be pretty major this year. It's Indian Wells, May 29 to June 2, contactinthedesert.com. I'm going to be involved in it quite extensively. I think we're going to have 63 speakers or panelists. It should have only been 50, but everybody wants to speak there. It's really hard to put it together and not upset a million people. But major event, okay? The rooms in the hotel resort of Esmeralda are taken, but there's a waiting list and people who cancel, but there's plenty of other hotels nearby, many of which are less expensive. And we do have day passes, so you can drive over from the coast. So it's a major event, May 29 to June 2. New Paradigm Institute is continuing to have a major impact. Danny is the head director. It has a lot of key people involved, and they are also a nonprofit. And they are
Storm as well, right?
What now?
Shift Storm as well.
That's kind of, I've already moved on. That it was something I was using back when the bill was getting screwed with. But my other major project, other than the ParadigmResearchGroup.org, is the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.
Okay, and I have all those links also in the description, sir.
And that is a 501c nonprofit, which is growing well. It's doing what it should do with very little money. I mean, Dan Harari, my partner, and I bootstrapped it literally out of our pocket. But we're now up to 205 members, half of which are UAP founding members. The other half are Hollywood or content creating founding members. And it's not, the Hollywood Disclosure doesn't make money from deals. It just helps other people to make deals in content, and they make a lot of money. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Right? We are a nonprofit networking entity. And so if we can get some decent funding, 20, 30,000, we could easily do a lot more, a lot faster, and bring in more members and take off. That's the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, based in Hollywood, but members from all over the world. Paradigm Research Group is also a nonprofit. I very much am in need of funds to be able to get some things going, because I know what's going on, but I really can't engage at the level I want to. I've got about a 25,000 threshold. Again, tax deductible.
Yes.
If I get that, I can immediately launch several projects, including the 7th X conference. There hasn't been one since 2010. I know exactly where to put it, the National Press Club. I know where the hotel is, and I can bring in a pretty substantial group of speakers who will focus exclusively on UAP, disclosure, the politics, and everything else. Might even get some people off the Hill, but you just can't bootstrap those things anymore. You've got to have front-up funds in order to secure dates and things. So I got a little 25,000 threshold. If somebody wants to put PRG back in business, that's all it takes. I got a donation thing right on the front page. And then we've got other organizations forming specifically to engage the post-disclosure world that's coming, like the Soul Foundation at thesoulfoundation.org, also a 501c3. UAP Disclosure Fund, a 501c4. Which is engaging the political side. MUFON is expanding in media and it's hired a lobbyist. There are other lobbyists that have registered that are actually lobbying. I'll get around to it. And there's other organizations that are coming faster than I can keep track of. Many projects, and I really do need to do a complete survey, but I'm pretty much focused on keeping afloat right now. But all of this is an indication we're almost there. We're ready. It's going to happen. And I hope it happens through our president. And the U.S. kind of leads on this. But the rest of the world, I assure you, all of the nuke nations and all of the other major economic powers will immediately confirm after our president confirms. They won't wait around.
No.
They're not going to be going, well, I don't know. Our prime minister will look into it. No, they look like idiots. So they'll all jump in. So we're that close to the biggest event in human history. And again, you are helping that happen, one podcast at a time. Anytime you need me, even on a cancellation short notice, it's what I do, my friend. I can get online in 5 minutes. So don't hesitate to check in.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for showing up, and get to that party and tell him thank you for everything that he's been doing.
I'll give Danny your regards.
Thank you.
Right. Later.
Have a good one, sir.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Wow, that was wonderful. He did have to go. Danny Sheehan, he has a party, I guess, upstairs that is going on currently. Mr. Nobody, I do have your question, and I'm going to be emailing him your question. So don't worry about that. I'll get that to you. And we have a couple of guests that are coming up here in the next week, but the next one that's coming up will be on this Saturday. We have Daniel Drazen. Let me see here what we got for Daniel Drazen. Daniel Drazen is, let me see here. Mysteries of Consciousness and the Cosmos. He's a pioneer researcher in the afterlife studies. So that's pretty cool. The afterlife studies. Daniel has expanded. Let me see here. Shedding life. What happens? Daniel has explored the profound question of what happens after we leave the physical world, shedding light on the scientific evidence for the survival of consciousness. So if anyone has any questions on Saturday, that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, April 12th. That will be the next podcast we do. I've got 2 other recordings that I am actually doing this week that is not part of the schedule. I have one with Dr. Richard Spence. He is a true master of the shadows. We're talking about a man who's retired CIA. That's right. I got him on the show. Dr. Richard Spence, a true master of the shadows, historian, author, seeker of hidden truths. He dives into the world and pulls the secret society strings out from underneath of them, people. They're strings. We're going to pull them on that podcast. Now, that's going to be pre-recorded. I'm doing that this week. I should be releasing that within the next couple of weeks. I'll release that as a special. Since we do Wednesdays and Saturdays, I'll release that as a special during the week. Stay tuned for that, as well as I have another one that I am recording, pre-recording, that is not part of the schedule either. Andrew Schechter. He is a scientist, engineer, and a biomedical professional. And we're going to have a rare, authoritative voice to the discussions on the paranormal, the metaphysical, and the unexplained. He has deep-rooted passion for exploring the boundaries of reality with decades of experience spanning science, religion, politics, manufacturing, and economics. So we've got a lot of guys coming up here in the next couple of weeks that are just going to be wonderful for us to have on here. If you guys have any questions you want to ask these people before, ask our guests before they get on, send me an email. The email's right down there at the bottom of the screen. Even if, Mr. Nobody asked a question, the guest couldn't answer, they had to go, that's okay. I will make sure I get that question to that guest and make sure you guys get your answers, to your questions. That's what we're here for. We're here to keep disclosure going, and we're going to keep it going. And that's the Galactic Family Podcast, everybody. Have a great night. And if anyone has any questions, any guest ideas that they want to bring up, hey, we should have this person on. Bring it up. Send me an email. I've had many people send me emails and tell me to interview this person, interview this person. That's these pre-recordings that are going on now. And wonderful, wonderful guests are coming up. Stay tuned. And as always, everyone have a good night. And, you will be accepted here. You will be. We understand what you've gone through, and nobody's going to tell you any different here. We've got Mr. Nobody in the chat room right now since Lady Daniel couldn't make it tonight. And listen, Mr. Nobody is going to be watching the chat room. And Mr. Nobody is going to Mr. Nobody somebody out if they're misbehaving. Just remember that. All right. Love you, Mr. Nobody. Have a good night. I will talk to you guys on Saturday. Have a great night, Galactic Family.